come within an hour, then, and he couldn't use his mouth on her. He could use his hands. If I can make you come, then you got to give me a name. She agreed. And of course, he makes her come because he's magical. So, of course, he can do it. And so, the name she tells him, she says, well, I'll give you one of the names. And he says, okay. And she says, Sophia Albee. And she puts her clothes on and she runs out. So he's thinking, he's like, what? Like, what the heck? So the next day at the office, he says, he lets her know, okay, that can't happen again. Because he had been thinking about it all night. Like, he wants her, but there is a huge age difference. Sophia's like 26, 27, and McAllister's, 54, 55 at this point. And so it's not going to look good, especially he's trying to, revamp his image, and it's not going to look good. He has his younger woman, and people are going to think probably the worst of him. He's know it's not good for her, it's not good for him. So the next day at the office, he just kind of lets her know that can't happen again. And she says, whatever, and okay, I get it. And then that bothered him because he didn't like the idea that she was just being so passive about it. And so McAllister has a dress for Sophia that he has a present for her. So he apparently had, sometime during the night, he had a stylist get a dress that he approved of and had it delivered to the office. And then, of course, it was super expensive. And she was just kind of like, you can't just, buy me. He's like, I can do whatever I want. You're my assistant. And I prefer for you to dress a certain way. It may be sexist, but that's what I prefer. And he's like, and when we're in meetings, it will help because men are visual creatures. And so it'll throw them off balance when they see you in this dress. And he was right, because it's exactly what happened when they went to a meeting. The men kind of went a little because, she looked great in her dress. And so every single day after that, next few days, she's getting dresses. A few days later, we have the bachelor auction. We've arrived. Of course, Sophia looks absolutely stunning in her dress. And a lot of the younger guys are, gawking at her. And so McAllister overhears a lot of them talking about Sophia. So he's pissed. And basically, one of the Richard Shaughnessy, who was on the board, his son Liam, is talking about wanting Sophia, and Damon Lynch's son Duncan, he's talking about wanting Sophia and stuff like that. And so he's a little pissed about that, and that bothers him like a lot. So then it's time for the auction, and at first it's like a little banter. It's like Evangeline bid like 1,000, someone else bid 5,000, and then all of a sudden the prices just start shooting up, and he winds up going for $100,000. And the person that bought him was Vivian Shaughnessy, who was the wife of Liam, of the guy that was messing with Alice before she died. So his wife bought McAllister, and basically she did it, because she was embarrassed when it got out that her husband had been messing with Alice. So that was her way of trying to embarrass her husband. So of course he runs over there to her. He's like, "What are you doing?" And when he sees McAllister, this is like the first time he's seen him since since everything happened all those years ago. He just pretty much let him know. McAllister was like, "Listen, we're even. That's it. We're all, the debt pretty much is settled. Like, you don't have to worry about," because he had been a little worried that McAllister was going to retaliate, do something. He's like, "You don't need to worry. Debt settled. We're done." So of course Vivian's not going to go with him to Aspen but he's still supposed to go on the trip. And he was supposed to go with Evangeline. And McAllister wanted Sophia to come along, and Sophia was like, no, I can't go. I got a lot of stuff to do with the next event, which was going to be Damon Lynch's. It was his 60th birthday, but it was also like a little fundraiser as well, because he's a political candidate. So it was kind of a little bit of both. And she's like, I got a lot to do, so that's not going to work. And he was just kind of like, all right. At first he was like, no, you're still coming. But then he kind of caved in. All right. So then the next, while they're at work, he's talking to her and he's like, I think you need to, he's like, have you been tested for any like STDs? And she's like, well, no, but I always use protection. And he said, well, what other method do you use? And she said, I'm on birth control. And he's like, well, you need to go get tested and show me your results. And that pissed her off because she was like, what the hell? But she went and did it. And the next day she brought in her results and was like, see, I'm all clean. And then he showed her his test results and she was like, you went and got tested? He said, well, I didn't go anywhere. I had my physician come to me. He was like, but that way you'll know as well that, you know, next time if something happens, we'll be safe. Because they knew this is going down. So they wanted to make sure they were all good. And I'm like, okay. And so he's kept buying her dresses. That doesn't stop. And then he starts to require her to send a picture of her outfit in the morning. So while he's away, this is when this whole debacle starts. So he wants approval, and she loves his approval. So she has to send a picture of what she's dressed in each morning for him to approve it. And so that's what she does every morning. And that becomes their little thing. And so since Sophia's not going to Aspen, she gets the information that Du Bois isn't the writer, James Du Bois. He's not going to be there either because apparently his mother's passed. And so Sophia at first was like, shoot, then it's like a bus that you're going to Aspen, because that was the whole purpose, was for you to meet up with him and to kind of start showing him what type of man you are. And so then she comes up with another idea and she's like, okay, how about we find a way to get someone from Damon Lynch's party to invite him to it, so that way the invitation's coming from that camp. And so McAllister was like, okay, we can do that. That'll work. So he goes to Aspen. It was, you know, but at least she got to send her pictures, and so she was fine. So Sophia gets everything ready for Damon Lynch's 60th birthday party / political fundraiser, and everything's going super great. She actually took a great shot of McAllister, and McAllister gets like really jealous because he sees that Duncan Lynch guy trying to dance with Sophia, and he's trying to put his hands on her, and so it pisses him off so bad that he walks over and he's like, I need my assistant. And so they go and they walk into the maze because they're at the Hill Estate, and he lets her know, you did a great job with this event. Like, this was really awesome. Like, you really did a great job. And he kisses her again. And he wanted to like screw her at them, but he was like, no, she's worth so much more. I don't want to do that to her back here. And plus she's like, people are going to start to think that, you know, they're going to be looking for us in a minute, you know. And so he says, I know the name. McAllister says, I know the name of the other person. He's like, it's Duncan Lynch, isn't it? And she's like, nope, it's not him. And so they go back to the party and they finish out. And so then the next day at work, she's doing her normal routine of she's sending her outfit to him to make for his approval. And then when she gets to the office, he tells her that he has a gift for her. And she's like, yeah, I thought we talked about this. No more gifts at the office. Like, people are going to start to notice. And she opens it up, and it's a whole vibrator. So McAllister waits. He tells her to go plug it up. Let me go back. He tells her to go plug it up and get it charged. And so she does it. And then when everyone leaves and everyone's gone off the floor, he lets her know that he's like, lock the door. And he tells her to get on his desk. And he was like, I want you to use the vibrator to make yourself come. And she's like, I can't do that in front of you. He said, but you did the other night. You came in front of me. She's like, yeah, but you were doing something to me, but I just can't make myself come in front. He's like, that's okay. I'll just make you come with my mouth. So she has the vibrator, and he's going down on her. And, of course, she has this explosive orgasm. And after that experience, she lets him know who the other person is. And she's like, it's Damon Lynch. And so, come to find out, Damon Lynch is her actual biological father. Her mother had got really sick when she was about 14, and sepsis had set in, and they thought she was really going to die. And so she had a deathbed confession, and she told her that she had only messed with Damon one time, but it resulted in her being pregnant because Stephen Albee he's sterile. He can't have kids. So once that confession was made, she didn't tell her, she told the dad, Stephen. So after that point, Stephen started to treat her a lot different, which is sucky because it's like, it's not the child's fault. You've been in this child's life for 14 years. I can understand the shock, but he starts to treat her a lot different and not in a good way. And so he actually did schedule a meeting for them to meet, for Sophia and Damon to meet. And when they did, Damon basically told her, you're 14 years too late. You already have a father. And so now it makes sense of why she wants to expose him, because his whole platform is supposed to be he's this great family man. And people know that he steps out on his wife. But, a whole kid, that could, potentially destroy his campaign. And so that's why she wants the secret revealed. So a couple days later, Damon Lynch and James Du Bois, they come to the house for a game of skeet again. And so Sophia and McAllister play against them. They win, of course. And McAllister gives James a tour of the house. And so McAllister isn't what James Du Bois thought he would be. Like, he's like, okay, you're a little different. Like, he's like, how would you feel about maybe consulting with me on the book? And so McAllister agrees, but he doesn't tell Sophia necessarily about that portion. And so then McAllister has to go out of town because there's this massive issue with the German bank. And so McAllister and Royce wind up going over to Germany, and they're gone for like 10 days. Of course, Sophia misses him terribly. She still sends him the pictures every morning of her outfits, and then he starts to send her pictures of him as well. So they are clearly falling for each other. But it's super cute because he is older, but it's super cute how he's adjusting. I thought it was super cute. And so they're, sending their flirty texts back and forth. And she lets him know that she misses him, and he lets her know that he misses her as well. So then when McAllister gets back in town, it's the opera event, and Evangeline's sick, so he tells Sophia, yeah, you're going to be my date. And so, of course, Sophia looks stunning as usual. And while they're watching the opera, they have a heartfelt moment because the opera was about someone losing like the love of their life and how they were coping with it. And both of them, it was just like a really sweet moment. And so they were holding each other's hands, and it was just really super sweet. And so after the show, McAllister was meeting